we could see, additional strengthening of that. This is the best information we have right now. Tells us 5 days out we've got something here, and that also means you should be now making your plans. So a couple of days from now, when we can pinpoint exactly where this is going to go, people can then put those plans into place. Shep?
It sounded like your team's hope yesterday was, well, from an American perspective at least, that the mountains in the Dominican Republic might break this thing up. Now it's not even going to happen.
Yeah, or Puerto Rico. Either one of those. There's a bunch of mountains there. If the center goes right over it, it really disrupts it a lot, and that would have been much better. It didn't happen. Going right over the BVIs, those aren't enough mountains. There's not enough landmass to really disrupt it. So it hasn't had any of that land interaction to cause it to disravel a little bit or to unravel. That's why it'll remain at this hurricane strength, and all of our guidance says it's going to get stronger.
Better sense of where and when by Friday or so?
Yeah, I think by Friday we'll have a much better sense. There's a lot of things 5 days out that contribute to where a storm is going to go, including atmospheric features that are still way out across the Pacific, not even over a landmass yet. Until those things get, especially over a landmass. Keep in mind, Shepard, for all of our forecasting that we do, most of that comes because we launch air balloons from land. We don't have all of those places out in the water to put up air balloons to get information. So we don't get as good of information until a disturbance or a weakening in our atmosphere gets over the mainland USA, where we start to send up all those balloons and get better information out to get better information out.
Rick, appreciate it. We'll be watching as the days roll by. As Dorian appears ready to skirt by the American territory of Puerto Rico, if not hit somewhere around San Juan, President Trump is calling the island one of the most corrupt places on earth. He added that, by the way, he's the best thing that ever happened to Puerto Rico. Those clearly are opinions as opposed to facts. The president also repeating his false claim about the aid that Puerto Rico has received. Here's his tweet from yesterday. Wow, yet another big storm heading to Puerto Rico. Will it ever end? Congress approved $92 billion for Puerto Rico last year, an all-time record of its kind for anywhere. That is decidedly not true. We checked with sources, including the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, and the latest numbers show that as of the end of June, the federal government has allocated $42.7 billion for Puerto Rico. Of that, about 21 billion is binding. In other words, Congress has to pay it. And of that, Puerto Rico has received less than $14 billion. So $14 billion or less, not $92 billion. That $92 billion is actually an estimate of how much money the island could need in the decades to come. The president also claimed it's an all-time record for anywhere. It is not. In 2014, the Congressional Research Service estimated that Congress provided roughly $120 billion for the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, which devastated the Mississippi coast and flooded New Orleans. There's another piece to this as well. As the storm threatens both Puerto Rico and potentially the east coast of Florida and, who knows, Georgia up the shore, we don't know yet, the Trump administration is diverting money from disaster aid to the southern border, hundreds of millions of dollars, at the peak of hurricane season. John Roberts reporting. He's live out on the North Lawn. Hi, John.
Shep, good afternoon to you. This idea of reprogramming, that is moving money around from one agency to another depending on the need, is something that's happened in each of the past 4 years in regards to the border, going back to the Obama administration. A little less than a month ago, DHS notified Congress that it wants to reprogram a total of $271 million to address the crisis on the southern border. Of that, $116 million would be reprogrammed to put up more single adult detention beds. And here's the point of controversy here. $155 million of that would go to temporary immigration facilities on the southwest border under the new Migrant Protection Protocol, and that money would be reprogrammed from the FEMA Disaster Relief Fund. Now, FEMA told Fox News that that money will come from what's called the Disaster Relief Fund base account, which covers so-called pre-disaster declaration surges. That surge has already occurred in Puerto Rico, where FEMA's prepositioned a lot of supplies. There was $602 million left in that account, and FEMA says taking $155 million for the border will still leave enough to cover any expected pre-disaster surge in the next month when the fund gets replenished again in the new budget October 1st by about $474 million. There is also historical precedent for doing this and during hurricane season. In August of 2014, the Obama administration reprogrammed even more FEMA and DHS money to address the Central American migrant crisis on the border. It was a total of $405 billion, $267.6 million of that coming from FEMA's Disaster Relief Fund. Other money came from the Coast Guard, TSA, and U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Back then, Democrats did not complain about it, but they sure are complaining now. The Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer saying, quote, taking these critical funds from disaster preparedness and recovery efforts threatens lives and weakens the government's ability to help Americans in the wake of natural disasters. I talked to them both today, and FEMA and DHS say that's simply not true. It's not going to affect what Chuck Schumer says it will, that there is still plenty of money left in the base account to pre-position any supplies that are needed between now and the end of the year based on historical precedents. And don't forget, the end of the year is September the 30th. There is also a second account in the Disaster Relief Fund called the Majors account. That is the account that actually funds disaster recovery. And FEMA told me moments ago that in that account, there is currently $27 billion. Shep?
John Roberts, live at the White House. Thank you, John.